Hello and welcome to Dav Chat with Davina. I'm your friendly formerly Australian background, now living in the United States, political commentator in a casual, basic kind of way. I'm on a learning journey about the United States. I invite you along. I've willfully chosen to bring my children to a country that has continuing problems with mass shooting, a problem that's very localized to the United States. And it's a concern for me. I know it's a concern for lots of other people. There's one political party that continues to bring forward legislation that would address these problems. There is one political party that continues to seek solutions, and there is one political party that continues to obstruct those solutions, obstruct that legislation, filibuster it, block it, vote it down. And they're called Republicans, and they've essentially formed a coalition with the NRA. So even though the NRA is on a financial back foot at the moment, it's still playing an oversized role in American politics, and a lot of politicians have stamped out a position based on whether or not the NRA was going to give them an A rating or downgrade them if they chose to show any sign of support for common sense gun safety reforms that would involve strengthening background safety checks, ensuring that less stable people find it difficult to get hold of a weapon, basically to reduce the severe proliferation of military grade high-powered weaponry that has made it a competition for people with sociopathic tendencies to try and get the highest total of your children's lives that they possibly can in a school shooting. It's an evil competition, and I hesitate to even use the word evil because that's how Republicans want to frame it, to make it a spiritual matter and remove it from the region of legislation, of problems that can be addressed by legislation. They want to characterize it as a spiritual problem. How do we address evil in our community? We don't have to eliminate evil. We could just save children's lives by making it more difficult for anyone and everyone to get access to high-powered weapons of war that make it easy to wage war on the nation's children and any innocent target of hostility, such as racism that's so pronounced that a shooter would go to Buffalo and kill 10 African Americans shopping for groceries, any manner of mass shootings that I can enumerate. So what have we got here? I've got something that's important, and that is Ron Filipowski, a former employee of Ron DeSantis and an attorney. He notes insightfully that Republicans are working hard to frame the gun and abortion issues for the midterms. Oh. Hello? It's spam. All right. But just quickly to touch on the topics I put in the headline before I go away, I would like to say that Michael Sussman, a lawyer who was employed by Hillary Clinton, has been acquitted, found not guilty of lying to the FBI. He was part of a show trial in the Durham investigation established in 2019 by the Trump administration, effectively to try and protect Michael Flynn, deflect from the Trump involvement in the Trump administration's beholdenness to Russia, to the kleptocratic governance of Russia, to Vladimir Putin. Trump was beholden to Vladimir Putin for help pushing him over the edge to win the Electoral College, although he couldn't win the electoral vote, either in 2016 or 2020. Now, trying to investigate a former attorney for Hillary Clinton to say, he fabricated a connection between Trump and Russia and tried to sell that to the FBI. It's nonsense. He didn't lie or misrepresent anything to the FBI. He's been acquitted. Thank you, grand jury, for noticing that Durham's case was thin, poorly constructed, and just basically an excuse to give Sean Hannity something to talk about on Fox News to feed a confected outrage to the Fox audience, because they need a continual replenishment of the hypnosis that white nationalism has over them and over their psyches, so that they can't look around them and notice that their votes continue to support an America that gets worse in a lot of critical areas, like the safety of children in schools, like the national debt whenever a Republican's in office, like the number of Americans enrolled in health insurance. Those things are all depressed under Republican presidents and specifically under Donald Trump. And Fox audiences will only continue to prop up the theocratic coalition, the Republican NRA coalition, if they keep having something to be angry about, if they keep being fed outrage, confected outrage that feels plausible to them. Feels plausible because it begins to feel like common sense when you're told the same things over and over again. They're told trans children are the problems, a fraying moral fabric is the problem, as illustrated by the laxity of marriage laws made to now include homosexual Americans as equal citizens of America with equal rights to marry and adopt and get insurance and all those type of legal protections. It's a form of pandering to the worst theocratic impulses, to say an erasure between church and state, to have civil progress wound back to play to the bigotry of people who want the church and the state to be one, who want those biblical throwbacks to rule over the rest of us. And as somebody who's not Christian and who doesn't embrace the imposition of theocracy on me or my family, or my access to needed medical care if I require an abortion as medical treatment for a septic uterus, for an ectopic pregnancy, for a missed miscarriage, for multiple different medical reasons that I could need an abortion as a woman. And if my life would be put in jeopardy because too many Americans continue to vote for Republicans, even though they are evidently taken over by a lot of anti-democratic, pro-church rule type of impulses that not only endanger women, but endanger people in minority groups and endanger children who have to continue to live in a country that has deprioritized children's safety in favor of the status quo of pandering to gun fetishists, to misinterpreters of the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment in and of itself was a form of pandering to the states to say you can still have your state militias and let them buy all the weaponry for themselves that they want, as long as you all agree to become signatories to this new constitution we're putting forward for a United States of America. So onwards and upwards towards a more harmonious union. And please, if you know somebody who is considering voting Republican or considering sitting out the election when they would normally vote Democrat, please tell them it is unconscionable to ignore the needs of American children to be safe, that mass shootings can happen anywhere, and that whilst it's difficult to eliminate them in the face of a very entrenched gun culture, their likelihood can be significantly reduced if the assault weapon ban is reinstituted, if the system of conducting background checks is strengthened, if the loopholes such as gun shows are closed and people can't just evade scrutiny by buying a gun at a weapons show, if 18-year-olds find themselves unable to buy weapons of mass destruction on credit, all those type of things. All right, I'm out of here. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to any replay viewers. Andrew Yang, you suck, and you're part of the both-sidesism that perpetuates minoritarian Republican stranglehold over the majority. So do better and What was the last thing I said? Did I say anything about J.D. Vance? He's a candidate. He won the Republican primary for, was it Iowa? Anyway, a 2021 interview was surfaced in which he recommends that America's isolated youth lose access to pornography, that pornography should be in some way banned. Look, I don't have an opinion on that right now, other than to say there's always a race as to who can out-pious each other in parts of the Republican Party when it becomes more extremist. This is one of those moments. Republican extremism has to be rejected by a majority of decent Americans in order for American democracy to be salvaged and majoritarian rule to be restored. We have to reject the myth of catering to the little guy. It's catering to the bigots and catering to people who want to impose religious rule over those of us who aren't Christian and who don't subscribe to that kind of very sustained, typically racist, anti-diversity bigotry. Cheerio, take care of yourselves and each other. I'm Davina in broadcast. Bye. Hope you enjoy the replay.